Autumn Brown, frontwoman of the soul pop band Autumn, a queer science fiction writer, a theologian, a mother of dragons, and a healing justice facilitator for social movements living on Dakota and Anishinaabe land, currently known as Minneapolis.
And I'm Adrienne Marie Brown, a luscious Black queer witch writer auntie, an apocalyptic love scholar, public conversationalist, and gardener of healing ideas. I live in the land of the Occaneechi, Shakori, Squirure, Tuscarora, Eno, and Lumbee peoples, currently known as Durham, North Carolina.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World.
Our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity.
As a reminder, we have no ads. We are listener supported.
And you all are the listeners. So please join our Patreon for exclusive content. I'm so excited because today we have two guests who are my neighbors and part of my circle of love in Durham, North Carolina. Kaji Reyes is fiercely committed to relationships with those around him. He strives to be nurtured and nudged by his people and to be in struggle to find a path towards our collective liberation. At heart, Kaji is a QTPOC, queer trans person of color, from Tucson, Arizona. He found his way to Durham by way of the economic crisis of 2008. Kaji has 2 decades plus of experience across a gamut of community organizing issues and spent 7 years at Durham for All, the last 2 as the executive director. Now he does many things, including managing the land and animals of a budding community project called Owl Song and growing a capacity to lead sweats and spiritual ceremony, which is how I have most come to know him.
We also have Sendolo Diaminah, who you all have heard on the podcast before during the election season, back with us today. Sendolo is the co-director of the Carolina Federation, where she works building governing power for working people and communities of color in North Carolina. He's a strategist with over 15 years of experience in community and electoral organizing, as well as experience winning and holding elected office. Before founding the Federation, Sendolo worked as training director at Black Organizing for Leadership and Dignity, aka BOLD, where she developed thematically based leadership curriculum for organizers and executive directors. Sendolo is also a part of the Sweat and Spiritual Community Exploration.
And I will say I consider both of them my teachers and community, and I'm pretty geeked out to all be together. It's so suiting to what we were just talking about. So the card I pulled for today is called Bouquet. Bouquet. This is from Grandma Baby's Black Gold Lenormand. And it's the card of trust. It connects to the Queen of Spades. What you're looking for, you can't find outside of yourself. Are you listening to your gut? Are you tuning into your intuition? Remember how to see medicine where you were taught only to see an ornamental blossom or a homely weed. Trust that there's more to what you're seeing or experiencing than meets the eye. This card asks you to rely on your spiritual senses as much as your physical ones, which is perfect for today. So before we get into the conversation, we always love to just land together. And so one of the ways we do that is just by saying, hey, how is everyone doing right now on the clock of the universe? Why don't we start with sleepy old Sendolo?
Keeps yawning over there.
I was telling Adrienne I'm so tired. And I'm on the Zoom and my staff are sending me DMs. They're like, why are you yawning so much? Do you not like our section? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. I love and I'm proud of you.
Assure, affirm, assure. Yeah.
You know? So yeah, physically tired. There's a lot moving in my life and in the world. And also I'm feeling very proud, very mama bear right now. One of my new organizers came to me to renegotiate her goals yesterday. And I was like, yes, telling your supervisor that you think the goals are wrong, success. Like, let's talk about like what's actually needed and what you're seeing. So I'm feeling like really uplifted that our organizer Kyla did that yesterday.
I love that. Shout out, Kyla. Good job. Awesome. Kaji, how are you, my love?
I'm feeling both relaxed and a little on edge. I feel like, although I love what we're going to be discussing, it's also deeply personal and feels like I'm still learning how to talk about spirit and connection in this way. And so I'm feeling I'm excited. I'm a little on edge. And I just came out of a very lovely listening retreat where I spent some time out on the land. And just really getting to, just ground yourself and connect in nature is just, it settles my nerves. So I'm just feeling all the things.
All the things. Beautiful. Welcome. We welcome all of it. Autumn, sister, how are you doing?
Wow. Well, I feel like I'm joining the train of I'm feeling more than one thing at the same time. I'm in Minneapolis. And one of the things that we're navigating here right now is that we're having another kind of escalation of ICE presence. They didn't, there was a drawdown. They didn't go away, but there was a drawdown. But there's been an escalation in some different kinds of tactics that they're using, including some really aggressive targeting of organizers and community. And some of that has been happening on my block over the last couple of nights. It's just been kind of a creeping anxiety time, more sleepless nights kind of time. I had a really hard time sleeping last night as a result of what was happening in the neighborhood. So, but that being said, I'm about to go on vacation and I'm going to be taking a week-long trip to a beach. And I am so grateful and so ready. And this is a trip that, as Adrienne knows, was rescheduled because I was originally supposed to go away in February, but at the time things were too hot here in Minneapolis for me to feel like I could leave. And now things have calmed down enough that I feel like I can actually go away. And I feel my nervous system is really ready for the reset. So I'm also feeling excitement and the wanderlust Sagittarian energy of I'm about to go on a trip. It's like a music all inside me. So that's good. That's good. So it's both. And my eye is still twitching because I'm so tired, but I'm about to be in the ocean. So
yeah, the ocean's going to twitch that right on out of you.
Exactly.
Water's good medicine.
Yes, it's the best medicine, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass it to you, Sister Adrienne. How are you?
Well, it's sweet news. I was sitting on my porch just now and I saw my first lizard of the season. They just feel like such a sign of peacefulness. I'm I have to be pretty still and peaceful. And then they'll come around and just be like, oh, what's up? And then there's also a whole menagerie of birds. And then the squirrels are back and everyone's just getting fat in my backyard because I'm very, excessive with the bird food. And my friend Courtney came through who helps me figure out my garden stuff. And she put in some food after, because I was I'm not a food growing person. I'm an herb growing person and barely that. But, times being what they are, I was it wouldn't hurt to have some kale back there just in case,
So hearty. Such a hearty.
It's so hard. Yeah. I was give me some hearty ground cherries or something like that. And then, yeah, I'm I'm going to be so fed. Me and my kale ground cherry salads. But so that's going on. And then the other thing that I've been really sitting with is Autumn, what you just brought up about Minneapolis. I keep feeling these crises keep starting. And I bring my attention to them. I bring my care. I bring myself. And then they don't stop, but a new crisis comes. And so then I have to bring my attention and care to this new crisis. And I can feel this guilt of not having more attention, not being able to in the same way as the way love works, right? Where it's oh, each new nibbling that comes into the world, I'm I fully love you purely. I want to give you everything. But then there's another one and another one. And it's like, how many people can I give?
Who's responsible
this,
for all these nibblings
all this
being born?
love, right? And it's like in the same way, I'm like, I actually do love all these places, all these, like I love the world, but I'm like, how much can I scale my capacity to pay attention to the scale of what's happening in the world? And I'm having to really, I've been doing a lot of meditation on just being like, I can't do it all. I can't pay attention to every single thing, and I can't give the same level of reaction to every single thing. So how do I pick the things that I can give it to, and really, like, rather than not giving any because I'm overwhelmed, how do I like hone in, hone in here at home and hone in with the communities that I have connection with. But I've really that's been like perplexing me a lot in this practice, especially, I'm writing this book. And so there's a way when you're writing a book that it's both like, this is so amazing, I love this book. And also like, this is so useless. Like, people are needing me right now. And I'm over here like, I'm writing a book. But then I just have to like look back through time. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm writing it. I know you're writing. Well, it's really hard because I'm like, the thing you're asking for is a tangible thing now, but I trust that this book will be a tangible thing then. And that the tangible thing that it is will be worth the focus I give it now. But it's hard to balance all those things. But I do love what's happening with this book. And I do believe, I look at the cumulative power of the books I've already written and put into the world. And I'm like, I wasn't even able to give them a third of the attention that I'm being able to give this book. And I hope that that's going to result in something that's even better medicine, even clearer, even more useful.
Wow.
So yeah, we'll see. That's how I'm doing. Yeah, it's really good to be here with you all. I love talking with each of you individually. And I think together we're going to make some magic happen. I wanted to give people a little framework though, because we want to talk about some things that are really intimate, and we're talking about ceremony and ritual and spirit. But I wanted to say at the front end, we're not going to spend a ton of time on the actual technologies of ceremony and like the specific ceremonies that we all do, because ritual and ceremony are really private. It's really intimate work. And they are often a part of long lineages that are served by and have survived by discretion and experiencing versus hearing about. What we are more interested in here today is what it means when people who have participated heavily in organizing and are still in that organizing work, who are trying to change the systems we are in through organizing. What happens when we hear a call or finally answer a call towards spirit? How do we grow multicultural, spiritual spaces that can actually nourish our political work? And we're really curious this season. We're really thinking about the art of it all, right? The radical art of being together and creating together. And when we're together for ritual, there's music, there's song, there's aspects of setting and theater, there's protocol, there's medicinal smells, there's the art of the altar, and then the art that emerges from humans when we're together, always. So we're going to be focusing on the creative and cultural thrust of spiritual work here, and the invitation for anyone who's listening, who's like, yeah, but what do you do? Is like, you need to find a teacher. You need to find a community. You need to find a sangha or a circle. And maybe some of the things you'll hear here will point you in different directions. But if you're curious about that, there's so many answers. I keep telling people, like, just go read some Malidoma Somé, or go read something that helps you, go read Buddhist texts, go read texts from people who've been like, we want you to know about these rituals. That's a great place to start. So
Great.
That's what we're up to. All right.
Thank you for that context setting, Adrienne. So on that note, Sendolo and Kaji, we'd just like to start by asking each of you to tell us some highlights from your personal journey towards the current spiritual life that you have. So Sendolo, why don't we start with you?
Oh, dang, I was going to be like, Kaji's my big brother. He's older. He's going
okay.
first.
I feel that Kaji can go first.
I can go first. Sure.
Okay. All right. Elders go first.
Come on, old man.
I'm a yelder, young elder.
You're a yelder?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you. I accept that.
Yeah, you really are.
Some highlights, it's funny because I feel like I have a lot of experience running from my medicine and running from spirit. And I think, when I start to think about like what are different moments, it's not like I had a like boom epiphany and I'm going to go study this. But I think, my interest, my family has a lot of medicine. I think a lot of our families, everybody has medicine. It's just a muscle that we practice. And so if we don't practice the muscle, then the medicine is not as strong. So I just want to like name that as a thing. But my mom and my family practice medicine and have for a long time. And when I was a kid, I think my mom really was searching for spiritual spaces that felt like home. So we kind of went to a lot of different churches, temples, and, experienced many denominations and ways of ritual and ceremony. And then later in her life, she kind of landed on Wiccan as the thing. And I lovingly tease her.
I didn't know that.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah,
Cool.
that she is the only Asian Wiccan in the world, which is can't be true. But
I love that for her.
Yeah. But I think it's the closest thing to, what she has called kind of Filipino voodoo, kind of a spiritual practice that's connected to earth-based practices. Yeah. And so that's kind of like a major highlight to, early on. And I think, in my younger, early 20s, mid 20s, I was going through a gay divorce. And I was living in the little casita that we had built together in the back of my partner's house, trying to figure out how to continue to be in relationship. And a brother from another mother came to live with me in this 300 square foot studio. Wow. And, we just really took care of each other. And he was very steeped in ceremony, specifically ceremonies of indigenous or First Nations peoples in the Southwest. And he was like, he looked at me, which I interpreted as, you look like a sad boy. And he was like, maybe you should come to ceremony with me. I think it'd be good for you. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is, but okay. And I went, and it really shifted and changed and honestly saved my life. Not that, I would be heading to a place of self-destruction, but feeling a part of something larger and feeling that kind of breath of spirit start to work its magic on me. And so I think, I'll name a couple other things and I'll let Sendolo talk, but I think, coming into this has really been kind of like a huge arc in life for me, being running to kind of like spirit shows up, shows a path. And I'm like, okay, here's the path, not knowing that that's the path that I'm taking, but I take it anyways. It wasn't like a thought to be like, I'm going to walk this path at that time in my life. And so I'll name a interesting, kind of coincidence that right after I graduated high school, a friend of mine at the time, which I think it was like a message or a download from spirit, and they were looking at me and they're like, Kaji is my real name, but it's not my birth name. And they're like, you don't look like your birth name. I'm going to call you Kaji. And I was like, wow. Oh, I ain't mad at it. I was like, where'd that come from? And she's like, well, you're kind of like, your spirit's kind of like high like a kite, but you're down low like a G. So kite and G was Kaji.
Wow.
And I was like, all right. And then it wasn't until years later when my cousins from Japan came to visit and they're like, oh, Kaji, that's fire. That means fire in Japanese. And I was like, oh. So, years later when I'm having this, welcoming into ceremony, I became a firekeeper for many years. And so it was just like an interesting, like spirits working in this way that I don't know, until you
Chills.
look back and you're like,
I love that. I got chills.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I think one other thing is the housing crisis you mentioned, Adrienne, that brought me here, 2008. I didn't come here in 2008. I came here to 2010. But in 2008, I got laid off and I was doing electrical work with the union. Shout out to Local 570. And hey,
brother.
IBEW. That's right, brother. And, the journeymen that I worked with, they were really cared about teaching apprentices. And they're like, one thing you should also really know is this job doesn't allow you to take vacation. So when you get laid off, because you work a job till it's done, or you get laid off when it's done, or you get laid off midway through and they don't need as many people, you take your unemployment. You take all of your unemployment if you can, because it's your money. You put it there. You deserve to get it back. And so when I got laid off in 2008, I was like, okay, I'm going to take my unemployment. And then it was extended. So I had a whole year because I lived very I didn't
300 square feet and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I lived in a different studio.
By now you're in a different place, but yeah.
But what I did was really just slow down. And I had a little garden in the alley where my door faced, wash my clothes in the shower and set them up to dry on the porch. And I would just pick books to read, feed my friends, and play music for the plants to grow. And I don't even recall where I picked up this book, but it's kind of interesting that it landed me here. But it was Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower.
That's one of the reasons our podcast exists.
Yeah. So that's what I think, I had really contribute my move to here in that time of slowing down, reading that book and hearing her story about this character being like, God has changed. And I've often said that the longest relationship that I've had is with change, because as a military brat. So I moved around a lot. I had to figure out a lot of change.
Hey, no, isn't Kaji the best? Sorry, we're like military brats. We're making the military brat face at each other
All right. That's the military brat face. So across rooms, I'm going to give it to you.
What are y'all doing?
It's just did you grow up never being anywhere that was home?
Yeah.
Were you part of the colonial project?
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And now we're facilitators trying to change the world. Yay.
Yay for that, for real.
Yay.
But that book really made me stop and think, what am I doing with my life in this way where I was like, I want what she was cultivating. She is cultivating a life of learning, a life of being in active community. And it's kind of around these values, these spiritual values that brought everybody together from many different places. And I was like, well, I think it's time for me to leave the desert, which is just deeply home. I'm not from there, but it is home. And, Durham in itself felt like a mirror. From the South to the Southwest feels like mirrors politically and with people. And people just made things happen here like they did in Tucson. Yeah. And so it felt like the natural place to go to try to learn how to, for me, microfarm was the idea, but the saying, it's you have a plan for your life and God laughs and has a different plan for you. So that kind of is major arcs of how I got here.
Wow.
Beautiful.
All right. Younger brother, younger sister.
I don't know if I knew, or maybe I forgot that your original plan was microfarming in North Carolina, Kaj. Because that was definitely my scheme when I moved. I didn't think microfarming, but I was like, I hate people. I'm going to grow plants. And then got pulled back into organizing. So anyway, connections. So When I was a little kid, we went to this very white Episcopalian church called St. Martin's. And eventually my mom was like, we're leaving. We have to go to a black church. But in that early period, Episcopalians, the service has this particular structure, and like the priest sings this, "The Lord be with you," and then the congregation, "and also with you," like that. And I never wanted to sing the congregation part. I was like, I'm singing the priest part. That's the cute part.
I'm the top. I'm the top.
And I got in trouble, but I really loved that. And
wait, you got in trouble because you insisted on being able to sing the priest part?
The good part.
This is not surprising.
He got to do all these notes and like riffs,
and then everybody else was like, and I was like, yeah, no,
exactly,
no,
like 3 words.
I'm not in the chorus. I'm not in the background singers. No. Okay.
So, Father Bill, turns out many years later, came out as gay, and I remember seeing him and being like really moved, and we didn't have some deep relationship, but I was like, he was singing, and I was like, I feel connected to this. And then it's just interesting for me because spirituality and spirit wasn't particularly that it was related to formal religious structures. So I liked that song, but I wasn't like, yes, like let's do the church thing or things like that. The other connection for me was much more doing West African dance and really feeling alive and just excited, and like the exuberance of it, the joy of it, the sweat and the improvisation, like all of that, to me is what I would say were early experiences of like what spirit was related to, in this sense of like, we're all doing the same movements, but everybody's looks pretty different. And actually we're all really excited about it's solo time. We all know everybody's moves. Like we all share the same moves. But when somebody puts their particular flavor on it, like we just lose our minds and everybody's like excited about that. And so that kind of collective dance where nobody's in the audience, like everybody's in the circle. And then everybody gets a turn to step in and kind of bring their unique thing, I feel like is early experience of spirit. And that sense of like the drums get going and you get going and stuff starts moving that you didn't plan, Yes. And there's just this interesting relationship where like the things that come out in some ways were the things that got put in, like the dance moves that we learned and we practiced again and again and again. But then the way that they came out spontaneously on their own, you're not like, and now I'm choosing to do this move. Was kind of early stuff for me. And I imagine we're going to get into this, but as I kind of got more into political work, I kind of experienced this split where I was like, there's my spiritual life, which is kind of internal and personal. And then there's my political work, which is kind of external and public. And that also had this kind of like my kind of naturalist orientation of being like, I don't split the world into there's a supernatural world and then there's a natural world. I'm like, there is the natural world. But that kind of clashed with the traditions that inspired me and the way that they talked about spirit as being kind of this thing above matter or separate from. And then when I was in New York, I was going to school and I came across the work of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and the way he writes about God, the way that he writes about religious practice, I was like, this is it. Like what he's talking about the thing. And there's a way that he merged the political and the spiritual and the daily life and the spiritual depth all into one thing, where I was like, maybe it's possible for all of this to come together. And I think it's also the poetry of his writing. Like he just is very lyrical, and he's overflowing with this sense. I guess that's kind of a theme for me, that spirit has this kind of like sense of that which overflows.
Yeah.
So that was a milestone, kind of reading his work. The other pieces that I'll mention, the place where kind of in practice things came together, not just as the idea of a possibility or reading it as a possibility, was in 2012, Denise Perry took me to lunch at Elmo's Diner in Durham and was like, I'm helping to start this training program for Black executive directors. I was like, girl, I need that because I don't know nothing about no budgets. And I've never managed anybody, but I'm in charge of this organization. Like, God help us. She was like, yeah. We're also going to do some like body-based transformative. And I was like, but like not that much, right? Like really we're going to do like practical, like political.
Did I mention I don't know how to manage a budget?
Math.
And, I was very judgy. I was like, like on the left, there's all these people who want to talk about emotions and feelings, and they seem messy. And I like my stuff in order and lines and, controlled. So we're not going to do too much of that emotional, messy stuff.
Sendolo's nickname, we all get nicknames in bold, and Sendolo's nickname is Brother Rigger Fetish. Or Sister Rigger Fetish.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm Sister Cosmic Love.
You're
You just had to put those two next to each other.
I just had to put them next to each other so the friendship is clear for everyone.
So everyone knows.
But that rigor, you're like, I'm ready to come in and let's be clear, but the embodiment.
And I think that was very much a part of the powerful contribution and shape that I came in with. And, Denise tricked me. The curriculum was substantially more about embodiment.
She organized you.
That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very grateful for it. Mm-hmm. It was somatics, embodiment was the place where I was like, oh, dance, song, spirituality, political practice, leadership all came together in one space through Bold for me.
Wow.
And that was a very big deal in terms of my experience with spirit and its connection to kind of everything else in my life.
Wow.
From both of you, it really helps. I mean, these are just touches, right? Like, it's like there's so much in a life, but it's really beautiful to hear which parts of the story wanted to come up. I think a lot of people will be able to connect to that idea of like running from or like answering an invitation and not really knowing quite what it was. And then finding something beautiful or finding something alive or finding a piece of writing like that. All of that is what it kind of takes. So I'm going to ask each of you a question now. Sendolo, first. What I see being built here is a truly multicultural spiritual space. It feels deeply local, but it has tributaries from so many places. And we're in this political moment where people are really struggling to hear each other across difference, to claim each other as like, oh yeah, we could be part of the same thing. Like, it's like, no, you are other, like you have nothing to do with me. And especially in our movement spaces, how do we actually grow the multicultural spiritual space that nourishes meaningful political work? Sendolo, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then Kaji, I have another question for you.
Well, one of the things that feels powerful to me about what spirituality and spiritual community does is, I think it's part of what creates a sense of an us. And that, like, when we look at the history, every us began as multicultural, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no like primordial nation or primordial identity that was like unitary from the beginning. And I think so much of what spiritual traditions have done is say, well, here's this disparate group of people with many differences. Actually, the thing that's going to make us and us is we're going to choose to practice something together. We're going to create a shared relationship to mystery, to the kind of deepest aspects of life and the human experience. And that's what's going to make us and us. Not that we share everything else, but that we choose to share those things. And one of the biggest examples to me about that is the Haitian people and the Haitian Revolution and Voodoo, and like the process through which these very different groups of people came together and formed a pantheon, formed a sense of, okay, here are the different spirits that our communities, our ancestors, our lineages have. And we're going to fuse them into a shared pantheon and say, okay, we recognize each other's experience of spirit. Wow. And we acknowledge those, and we're going to call those, it's kind of like by recognizing an us of spiritual expressions, it allows us to be an us of cultural, physical, social expressions. Yeah. And yeah, that feels important to me because, I come from a Marxist background that's very, very important to me. And I think one of the limitations is confusing material interests as a necessary or a powerful opportunity to create an us with a sufficient basis for creating an us, and saying, oh, yeah, we're the 99%. True. Important. And just being the people who are being robbed is not a sufficient basis.
Dang.
For coming together across difference. But when we have the experience of encountering new life and joy, death and grief, absolute bewilderment and confusion where we don't know, and we're face to face with each other when those things are happening, then saying, okay, we can create an us around that experience because we have the sense of there is something greater than any of the things that we generate, to which we are able to be humble, and in relationship to which we can collectively come together. So to me, when we've been practicing, most of the folks in our community come from very different cultures, lineages, etc. But I think when we practice together, we're in relationship to that experience of something greater, and that allows a creation of a shared experience.
I really appreciate that, Sendolo. There's there's this book, Come As You Are, which it's about sex and sexuality and everything, but there's this beautiful phrase in it that talks about genitals, and it's just sort of like all the same parts, no two alike, or whatever. It's like no two the same, like all arranged in different ways. And there's something for me that clicks through on the spiritual level there, where I'm like, it's all the same. We're all made of the same life force and elements, and there's so much. And then we each have a different path or, callings or gifts or whatever to offer into it. And each of the rituals, that I've participated in with you all and that I've participated in my life, they draw so much on creativity, right? The gifts of the people, the distinct offers, and always being surprised somewhat by like, oh, that person had that in them. I didn't even know, there's this creative thrust, songs, poems, crafts, altars, in our rituals, I've heard both of you sing. I love hearing both of you sing. I love singing with you, and I feel comfortable in a way. I hate performing on stages, but I feel so much comfort bringing my creative self into sacred space. And I wanted Kaji to ask you to speak a little bit about this creative aspect of ritual and spirit work. And what does it bring you to make those offers, to receive those offers?
Yeah. What's coming makes me think of just the act of sound. When sound enters a space and then our voices like come in unison and enter, it really just like synchronizes our nervous systems. We link up on the same clock. And being able to be on the same space and place allows us to really face uncertainty, knowing that, we know we have this, I watch folks, videos of folks in Minneapolis coming together and chanting and singing together. And there's just so much pressure that I could like feel and see happening in that brief moment. And when people are doing a thing together that is sound, it really allows us to that syncing allows us to really become kind of a one body. And I think ceremony and the songs, poems, like things that folks share in actual ceremony allows us to really become one body and know that we're not alone and that we're able to actually face this uncertain, horrific moment with a level of courage that maybe we didn't have alone. Because the connection is there. The heart connection is happening when we are in sync together.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got to say about that.
No, I mean, it's true. I really appreciate that because when I think about it, even allows, like when we sync, it allows for people to come in and out of the process. Like I think about that part where it's like, I've never been in a ritual space with either of you where I felt like the goal was endurance beyond your capacity or just like when I think about church when I was younger and being like, you have to sit still, quiet, there's a certain way you have to override your body or override your spirit and to be in the space. And there's a lot of practices that require some elements of that. There's a stillness or a sit on your knees or something like that. I feel like there's so much about the way art and creativity open up the ritual space to be like, if you have something to offer it. If you need to take a breath, go take it. We're going to hold the song. The song will continue. You can stagger and you can take care of yourself. And the endurance that's required is much more about presence than it is about, physical sacrifice. But it's also like part of what allows that endurance is the creativity. It's like something new is actually arising here. You're not depleting yourself to stay. If you stay in, you'll begin to receive more than you could ever put into it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, you were just saying, Adrienne, so the main tradition that I practice in is Vajrayana Buddhism. And what you were just saying to me really highlights this piece that feels very important to me is the distinction between renunciative paths and life-affirming paths. And each of them have their own contributions.
Yes.
But there's a way where renunciative paths, I think, can be hijacked by supremacy and domination cultures in a particular way. And Kaji, when you were talking about your mom and kind of earth-based traditions, generally are not renunciative. And there's this sense that you don't need to get rid of the physical, the material, the guttural in order to get to spirit. And there's the renunciative paths can have this, like, your body's in the way, your desires are in the way. There are these things that if you could just get rid of them, then you could get to the spirit, versus traditions that are like, actually through all of that is how we contact spirit. And maybe we use some physically challenging practices, not to dissociate from the body, but actually to get even more in. I very much experienced that even with song, right? Like, even with like, how long is this note going? Are we bringing a renunciative orientation of like, how do I dissociate from the sensation of the breath leaving, et cetera? And I'm just going to hold this note. Versus being like, there's a wave to holding a sound that at the beginning has kind of more of a early flow to it, and then as it extends, its quality changes. And how do we stay with that that wave as we are in relationship with each other? So what you were saying just reminded me of that distinction.
One thought that just popped up now is I've been listening to this Thich Nhat Hanh podcast, and they talk about the monastic path, but that's not the only path. It's like, even with people all in the same spiritual practice, it's like there's some who are going to be maybe on the monastic path, which involves more renunciation, but they're in service to folks who are doing other, maybe more life affirming practices in their, as the way in, right? And that it's like, actually there's some balancing there, that like part of me is like always like, oh, I wish I could be a monk, but I understand that the life affirming path is like what's actually going to happen in this lifetime. Sister.
Well, Sendolo, I really appreciate the distinction that you're holding around different ways that people can engage with renunciative paths also, that because I know in my own life and in my spiritual journey, there is a way that it's just very clear to me that extremity of various kinds produces awakening of various kinds, right?
Yes.
And there's forms of extremity that we opt into in spiritual training. There's forms of extremity that are sort of foisted upon us through life circumstances, and all of these different forms of extremity, if we choose, can be pathways to awakening. I really appreciated what you brought forward about, like, is it dissociative or not? Because I think that there's ways of engaging in extremity through spiritual training that are about dropping more fully into the body, so that some of the stories that we make around what we're doing fall away, and then we're just in our bodies, right?
That's right.
But there's forms of extremity that, if we engaging in them through spiritual training, almost require dissociation in order to be able to survive them. And so, I really, I feel very, this feels very close to a lot of what I've been thinking about in my own physical training, spiritual training, and particularly because I've been navigating injury in relationship to my Aikido training. And so there's a lot of stuff that comes up around, like, to what extent should I be pushing my body towards more extremity in order to experience what I'm supposed to be learning through this injury?
That makes me think of, like, while in ceremonies that I've been able to be a part of the ceremony and offer and prayer is discomfort, and not discomfort to injury, but discomfort in the way of offering up the only thing we truly own, which is our bodies. And so how are we sitting with and being present with in the moment what is happening? Because I feel like all ceremonies really, like Sendolo was sharing, draw in and down deeper into the present and what is happening, because we're so often not drawn to notice what it is that we're feeling, and being present to that felt sense. Like, we, as in when we are doing ceremony together, the we is I am you, you are me. We are not separate. The we body, like, we are feeling something. And I might not be the one crying, but we are crying.
Yeah.
I might not be the one wailing and anger, but we are in anger. So we are feeling the thing in real time and being with and very present intentionally by just sitting with that. And I think in a lot of traditions, people use different medicines that incense, different medicines that you light. And those things help us bring us back to the moment. Like I might be like uncomfortable, and then I smell incense or I smell Palo Santo or something brings me back. And it also helps unlock and open the memories that we may not know that we have.
Right.
And so I say that in the way of like, our ancestors instinctively did this. There's not really any culture that doesn't have their practices and traditions and ceremonies. It's all deeply important as a practice to be able to actually notice what's happening with us. Yeah.
On that note, I want to transition us into thinking about the role of geography in the ceremony work that all of you are doing together and the spiritual training. As Adrienne named, and I think you've both kind of alluded to in your intros, sounds like you're both transplants to Durham, and you've been deepening roots or building roots with this place, with this particular geography. And I'm just curious to know whether there's a specific spiritual draw around this geography, and also what the geography it has, like what is the role of teacher that the geography has had for your spiritual practice?
I love looking at both of you like think by looking up in the other opposite directions. And so it's really precious to see. It's like, we'll ask a question, you both are like,
I moved to North Carolina from New York City. And I remember when I first flew down here to kind of get a sense, it was still snowing in New York and the crepe myrtles had started to bloom here. And I was like, it's a wrap. I am moving. And, Autumn, what you were saying about what role has the geography, the land played as a teacher, I very much feel that this ecological place has been my primary ground and teacher here. When I moved here, I didn't know actually any people. And so my first connection was actually, I had never heard singing frogs when I first moved here. I had never seen red clay soil. It was the climate and the plants and the animals of this place that were the first beings that I spent most of my time with when I first moved here, because I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
And as I got more into political work, it was also, when the shelter in place aspect of the pandemic was happening, gardening was this huge, very important thing that emerged for me. I'd always done gardening, but I got more time to do it. And it was really my reference point for being like, capitalism, the Republican Party, white supremacy are not actually the most powerful forces in the universe. Like, actually, literally being like, I am seeing life move and I am connected to and a part of that. And like, what I am a part of is not smaller than these systems that I'm trying to transform. These systems are smaller than the life that I'm a part of, and that the power that I'm a part of. And that's been just really important. I when a fungus would be like, nope, you're not growing squash because I am going to eat it all.
You're like, we didn't just talk about that in the meeting, sister.
This is what is true. You are not more powerful than nature.
That's right.
And I could create my structures and plant different things, but I'm like, I'm not the one that is making the corn silks happen. And, to see and feel all of this happening and to really experience it as gift, blessing, coming from that which is greater versus I am causing all of this. Has just been constant teacher. And for me, creates a very different basis for being what does it mean when we take on a campaign, win or lose? How do I confront somebody, one of our members who has some homophobic thing to say?
Yeah.
If my source of meaning is how much relative social power do I have?
Right.
That's a really different thing than my grounding, my teachers, my tradition is life.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. What about for you, Kaji?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just something about being in nature that is able to allow the mind and the body to unfold and relax and allow the ideas of creation to come and flow through us. Yeah. And so when I think of this place, I think, I came from the desert I was there for many years. I was like, what's all this? There's a lot happening around here.
It's a little chaotic out here. Yeah.
But I think each place has such a gift and a teaching to offer. I think, the desert has I will crush you down to your bones and then you can build yourself back up here. That's that feeling for me, and the lesson that I learned there. I lived in Panama for a little bit, and hiking through the jungle was there is so much happening that you don't see if you don't stop and pay attention and look at the little things happening all over. They were my friends. I didn't have friends at the time, so all my friends was plants and the cudamundes and the animals. And then I'm in a different season of my life, and I come here and I'm I'm in a micro farm. I'm about to, I know how to farm in the desert. I grew some great stuff. I get here and I'm nothing's growing. I don't know pH levels. Why? I was this looks like good dirt to me. This is good dirt, right? And I'm and there's just so many things to nature is such a beautiful teacher in the ways that you don't even know how you're going to get the lesson, but you're about to learn kind of thing, and
right. Yeah.
And the lessons learned are different, I think, in different geographies. And so, I think the lessons here have really been about what does it mean to root down. I look at these giant old trees, and the ones in Durham, they were planted about 100 years ago. And now, their lifespan's about 100 years. So now they're dangerous, some of them, and they're falling and dying, and the arms are taking out infrastructure sometimes when there's big storms. And so as somebody who has moved around a lot, this place has really taught me, what does it mean to settle here and allow your limbs to fall? What does it mean to settle and root here and allow the span of your life to do what it is naturally doing, that is heading to a place, And so,
Kaji.
Yeah, I think this place is very magical and has so many more lessons to teach me.
Wow.
Yeah. I think this is where we have to end it. It's just beautiful. That was so, sometimes you reach a peak. It's just there we go. That was the poem. We thank you both so much for being our guests today, for being so vulnerable, for giving us just a taste of this circle, the spiritual circle. And I hope for listeners that there's something in it that feels like an invitation for you. I'm not sure what your invitation is, but there were a lot in here of things to read, things to listen to, the invitation to step outside and hone in on the smallest thing you can pay attention to. There's just a lot of good here. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Shake these bones, oh God, shake these bones.
Thanks for listening to our show. We're on Instagram at End of the World PC.
You can also make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/endoftheworldshow. Patrons get access to our show within a show, Top Culture, on Mondays after each Friday episode.
Another incredible thing you can do to help our show sustain itself is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts if you're an iPhone person. This helps people looking for good new content to find us instead of true crime. Thank you.
That was rude. I love true crime.
I know.
How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the Swizzle Madizzle, Zach Rosen. Transcripts are in the show notes and on our website at endoftheworldshow.org. And a special thanks to Samira Abdurrahman for getting us together.
Music for today's show comes from Autumn, the band, Tunde Alani Run, Mother Cyborg, and the Banksons.
See you later.